The Maximum Happiness and Wellbeing Course, Part 2, Session 20, The Power of Love. If the first 19 sessions of this course are the building blocks of happiness, learn how love, the greatest power of all, is the cement that holds them all together. Love's phenomenal healing power is the strongest and most intense power of them all. The power of love. As part of the research for this session of the course, when the word love was typed into a search engine on the internet, it brought over 15 billion results. There's an enormous amount of material available about love. More is written about this subject than any other on the planet. And with all that information at our disposal, you'd be forgiven for thinking that we would have conquered the mysteries of love by this stage of our human development. Thankfully, that will never happen, and the fact that love remains a mystery to most of us gives it its eternal appeal. Years of studying the experience of happiness produced tens of thousands of pages of notes and research, enough to write at least one book on each of the sessions that are contained in this course. Love is by far and away the most fascinating and infinite subject of all. Everything you will ever read about happiness and meaning of life is based on love. Love colours every area of your life. The degree to which you embrace and give love will determine the happiness levels you will experience in life. How love develops, the stages love goes through. If you've ever been head over heels in love with someone, you will at some time have compared the feelings with those of addiction. As it turns out, scientists are discovering that a similar chemical process takes place with addiction that takes place when we fall in love. Love is a chemical state of mind that is part of our genes and influenced by our upbringing. Throughout the history of mankind, we as a world culture have made love out to be mysterious, complex, complicated and beyond definition. Maybe there's a fear that if we were able to define it, it would somehow be less powerful, less exhilarating. Maybe we like the mystery of it. But is it really that complicated? Perhaps the complications surrounding love come from everything we add to this powerful emotion. Romantic love exhilarates and motivates us. Without the attachment of romantic love, we would live in an entirely different society that more closely resembles some of the social circles in the animal world. The chemicals that race around in our brains when we're in love serve several purposes, not least of which is the continuation of our species. Those chemicals are what make us want to form families and have children. True love requires you to know a person very well. You must trust that person enough to have other friends of the opposite sex and know that they wouldn't do anything with the other person because they love you. This usually hurts the most. You lose that person's trust and respect when this is breached. True love cares about your inner beauty, not just your exterior beauty. It doesn't lock you up or control you. Love isn't selfish. It shares you and your qualities with others to enrich everyone's lives. The other person believes in you, making you believe you're capable of much more. The essential elements of love. When you're in love, what stirs within you? If we were to distill this complex emotion, what would we find? Love is a potent blend of feelings, a deep yearning, and a profound sense of being. It's a rush of joy, a hunger for connection, and a state of pure presence. But what specific emotions and desires course through us when we're in love? Love is about being fully present. It's about showing the person we love that we're there in the moment, fully aware of their existence. Love is acceptance. Acceptance is labelling someone as okay and having no desire to change them. Who they are is perfectly fine with you. You pose no condition on whether you will love them or not. It's unconditional love. When your love is conditional, the moment they step outside your set of conditions, love starts to evaporate. Love is appreciation. Appreciation is one step beyond acceptance. It's when your focus is on what you like about another person. We feel this sweeping appreciation for who they are, their joy, insights, humour, companionship. When someone says they're in love with another, they mean their appreciation is so enormous that it consumes their every thought. Love shows affection, regardless of how the other person may compare in some areas with others. We want to clarify by showing sincere affection that those we love are important to us. And love shows approval. Approval means letting each other be who you are. We don't try to control or allow others to control us. We don't deny either person's individuality. We don't try to change their personality or beliefs, blame or judge them for mistakes or differences. Approval is the essence of unconditional love. Love demonstrates understanding. Understanding is not just a tool, but a profound expression of our sincerity in wanting to identify how the other person feels and perceives the world, events and others around us. It's a bridge that connects us on a deeper level. Love is wanting another to feel good. We want the best for those we love, to be happy, safe, healthy and fulfilled. We want them to feel good in all ways, physically, mentally and emotionally. Love is first and foremost friendship. Before we can enter into a romantic relationship, and indeed after we have entered one, friendship must be the core element. Pure friendship is said to be the engine of romantic love. Love is respect. If friendship is the engine, that engine will not turn without the fuel of respect. Respect is based on our perception of a person's self-reliance. The more capable a person seems of standing on their own 2 feet, the more we will respect them. The more dependent a person becomes upon us, the clingier or needier they become, the more our respect for them evaporates. It's impossible to respect someone you can control like a puppet. Love is passion. We're not talking exclusively about sexual passion here. We're referring to the romantic desire for that person, the fire that burns within us. It's pretty normal for levels of passion to go up and down depending upon our feelings when we are with a person in different circumstances. Love is self-love, where it all starts. Self-esteem and self-respect are the foundational qualities of a truly healthy personality. The more you like or love yourself, the more you will like and love other people. The amount of love and respect you have for others, and they for you, is directly proportionate to how much love you have for yourself. Love is the mechanism that activates the very best in you and the people and situations around you. Let's look now at the stages of love's journey, the 6 steps that love takes. It all begins with attraction. Attraction moves on to romantic love. After romantic love comes the power struggle between the 2 people. On solving the power struggle, the relationship finds acceptance. Acceptance becomes attachment, and attachment matures into mature love. So let's look at those stages in more detail. Love grows and changes. The emotional stuff that brings couples together in the first place differs from the love that emerges 5 or 15 years later. Loving relationships go through many stages. All are important, and none can be bypassed if love is to flourish. Mature love doesn't exist unless the relationship has evolved through the earlier stages of attraction, romance, power struggle, acceptance and attachment. And when you look at love, you're looking into the face of appreciation. So starting with stage 1 then, attraction. Our choice of mate is guided by unconscious factors that are the same for everyone. Our unconscious leads us to the person who offers us the greatest opportunity to heal our childhood wounds, whether we're aware of this or not. The person we are most attracted to will likely share some significant characteristics with the parent who gave us the most trouble in childhood. If we follow the attraction through to a committed relationship, we'll have the same conflict with our mate that we had with our parents. Now, we don't intentionally set ourselves up to have a repeat performance of our childhood unhappiness. Unconsciously, we choose the patterns most familiar to us from our youth. We're now adults with greater personal strength and a better chance of standing up for ourselves. The learning and growing we must do to live in harmony with our partner is exactly the learning and growing required to repair the damage of the past. This is what we mean when we say that the purpose of loving relationships is to heal childhood wounds. After attraction, relationships move on to stage 2, which is romantic love. Love relationships usually begin with a solid physical and emotional attraction that produces a somewhat altered state of consciousness. Your brain is saturated with endorphins, creating the sensations of intense pleasure that accompany infatuation. The exhilaration and sense of well-being is similar to feelings produced by vigorous exercise or eating something extremely pleasurable like chocolate. In this highly charged emotional state, you'll likely project images, expectations and ideals of the perfect mate onto your partner. These often have little to do with who your partner really is, but it's hard to tell because you're on your best behaviour. Overwhelmed with romance and passion, you are highly responsive to each other in this stage. If all goes well, attraction turns into romance and everything about them becomes intensified, whilst everything about school, family, job, exercise and so on seems dull in comparison. Romantic love is a psychological and spiritual experience, but to be in love is to understand that we are also products of our biology. Much has been written about falling in love and the chemistry of it. The ebb and flow of romantic love should not be misconstrued as a signal that you are in a wrong relationship. Romantic love is not mature love. Eye-gazing, obsessing, daydreaming and physical desire will change over time into something else. What it ultimately changes into is up to the two of you. But as an immediate next step, it changes into something known as the power struggle. Stage 3, the power struggle. Infatuation and romantic love eventually subside, and a healthy relationship goes through a period of power struggles as each partner tries to shape the other into the ideal mate. Many couples argue and fight their way through this. Some will avoid sensitive areas of conflict. If neither of you is ready to risk confrontation, your lives will likely become more separate and devoid of intimacy and sharing. Even though you avoid open conflict, by agreeing not to argue and fight at some level, the tension and the pain remain. Some couples use guilt, blame and justification to control each other, to recapture feelings from earlier stages of the relationship. Both long for that period of infatuation when being together was fresh and exciting. Remember that it's normal to pass through romantic love and to experience conflict. It's simply the relationship growing. A relationship cannot grow without some form of conflict. Confrontation is healthy. It builds understanding and helps your relationship mature. The challenge is discovering what can be changed in the relationship and what must be accepted. The sooner you bring up issues when you feel hurt, taken advantage of, irritated, misunderstood or ignored, the better for the relationship. Suppressing them keeps you a victim and only leads to hostility and feelings of separateness. When you and your partner have been together for 2 to 3 years, things you hadn't noticed before begin to grate on your nerves. You love them, but you wonder where the romance went. You can only change yourself in a relationship. Put your focus on where you have control, on yourself, your behaviour and your communication patterns. Changing your partner must never be the goal. The costs of matching with someone who shares traits with a parent start coming into play now. You may not have had some of your basic needs met in childhood, so you try to fix it now, subconsciously. However, your partner may not be a willing teammate. You chose him or her partly because he or she recreated the same difficulties you'd had in childhood. Once the relationship passes through the stage of the power struggle, we arrive at stage 4, which is the acceptance stage, unconditional acceptance. A healthy relationship moves beyond power struggles and control issues to unconditional love and acceptance. However, during the transition, partners must still confront and resolve issues, taking risks to make positive change wherever possible and accepting those conditions that cannot be changed. Differences are approached positively, not as a thing to brush over, hide or suppress. Whenever two people get together, eventually some of the belief systems and personal habits will annoy the other, regardless of how much love there is. In healthy relationships, couples learn how to resolve conflicts like this. At this stage, each person becomes highly aware of various traits in the other. Some you like, others you dislike, but you learn to accept the ones that can't be changed. With good communication, you can almost always navigate your way to a more fulfilling relationship. Moving past the stage of unconditional acceptance, the relationship arrives at stage 5, which is attachment. The attachment or commitment stage is love for the duration. You've passed the love of romance and you're entering into real love. This stage of love has to be strong enough to withstand many problems and distractions. This is the stage of transition. Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs explained in session 4, if you've not successfully moved through the first 4 stages of love, you'll inevitably find yourself revisiting them before you can happily proceed to the final stage, which is mature love. And here we are at stage 6, mature love. This is the ultimate reward of committed, loving relationships. In mature love, the relationship continues to flourish from the corrections put in place to meet the demands of the power struggle. The partners learn how to balance closeness and separateness, how to create a sexual life that satisfies them both, how to solve problems effectively together, and how to talk and listen to each other so their differing points of view are understood and honoured. Finally, both partners know how to give each other love and receive the love that has been offered. You can see how crucial the power struggle is in stimulating couples to stick with it to reach mature love. Romance and attraction lend importance to this relationship stage. The partners in mature love have learned how to instill their relationship with gifts, compliments, appreciation, surprises and pleasure treats. They have re-romanticised their relationship. They look forward to giving each other gifts and graciously receiving them. They're refreshed by the attraction they still feel for each other and have learned that in mature love, attraction is based on having a shared past and an ongoing shared present. Now we'll talk about the different types of love. All these types of love are so relatable, you're bound to have experienced some of them. So let's just run through them. New love. This love is fun. You don't even realise you love them. It's more of a like because you've never admit to yourself that it's love. Regardless, it's a bundle of nerves and a whole bunch of fun simultaneously. It isn't very good because it can be taken away so quickly, but you're also just so hopeful it will last. It's the cutest of love, next to old people's love, which we'll get to later. Routine love. You've been dating and loving each other for a while. It's just a fact. There's a cosy comfort in this person. Routine sounds like a bad thing, but it's not. It's simplicity. There's no questioning. There's no hiding your feelings for each other. And it's great. They're right here for you, and you're right there back. There's comfort in that. Infatuation love. You love the idea of this person. You want them, but outside of that, there's no connection. This love is often fleeting, a whirlwind. There's so much about this person that you want to be part of, but lo and behold, there's not much meat to the relationship now, is there? You love the thought of being with this person and want to be with them, but once you have them in your grasp, you realise that you aren't quite meant for each other the way you thought. This kind of love can be the one that breaks hearts most easily. Friend love. You want to love this friend, but it's not there. Like you love them, but you don't love them. It's just not there for you. You'd be perfect for each other, but they just don't get it going for you, hence why you're just friends. But that's okay. You provide more support for each other than a lover ever could. Fake love. You want it to work so badly, but guess what? It doesn't. So you force this idea onto yourself that this person is good enough for you and you're good enough for them. So you march along onto the beliefs handed to you during childhood about what you should be doing with your love life. Fall in love, get married, buy a house, have babies. But maybe not with this person. If the realisation finally hits you like a steam train, cut it off. Find yourself an in it to win it love. The one love. They're it. The one. Plain and simple. It might take a while to realise it, but they're it. You might break up, get back together, break up again, but at the end you acknowledge no one on earth is quite like this person. You'd give everything for them. They're so perfect that you almost hate them for it, because you didn't think there could be a person in the world that could make you feel this way. In it to win it love. You guys are in it. You're not giving up on this. You're life partners. You can somehow watch this person throwing up and still want to have sex with them much later. But you've been through it. Whether it's losing a job or having a child, buying a house or the death of a parent, and they were there. They were supporting you the whole way through it. You couldn't imagine life without them. Tragic love. It ended, and it shouldn't have. Unrequited or somewhat one-sided. This kind of love is deeply embedded into your soul and passes through you slowly, but eventually you heal. You'll always feel the pangs of this love, but it's never quite the same as it was before. You know this. Your love would never be the same if you were to be together again. Everyone knows this. No matter what you do or who you love after that, you'll always remember this person. Perhaps in another lifetime you'll be together. Your parents' love. Now this can be taken two ways. The kind where your parents love you, even if you screw up, or the love that they have for each other. We're talking about the latter. Their love isn't always the best. They've fought, they've hugged it out, they've learned how to make it through their 20s, 30s, 40s and so on. You've witnessed it all. They've made the biggest impression on how to love. It may or may not have messed you up, but it might have shown you what kind of love you're looking for, whether it's the same or different from your own. From the earliest times we can remember, our experience of love has been the love we witnessed and experienced between our parents. This is what love means and looks like to us. If the relationship was violent and contained emotional abuse or manipulation, don't be surprised to see those characteristics manifesting themselves in your relationships. Until that is, you realise what's happening and fix it in your relationship. Conversely, if the emotion you experienced growing up was affectionate, positive, warm, selfless and compassionate, these are traits you are likely to have inherited and will want to keep. Unhealthy love. Many of us have that ex. They can't have you, so they want you. When they finally get you, they either abuse you, take you for granted, or simply don't want you anymore. It's a vicious cycle. You may still care for them because you had a different kind of love before, but it ended. And while you may still care for each other, it can never be again. Point blank, you're toxic to each other. Old people love. The cutest love of all. Who hasn't welled up watching two old people holding hands in the park? They've been through it all. Even the most garbage parts about a relationship, they stuck through it. They are more of a partnership than anything else. They've learned forgiveness, strength and perseverance through each other. It's a long love. It's a tragic love because one must always go before the other. But they know they'd never want anyone else by their side than their mate. The courage to share precious moments. Deep love necessitates a certain level of emotional courage, but sharing precious moments demands even more. Why is this emotional courage so crucial? The more precious moments that you share together, the more difficult it will be to avoid the truths that you may have denied or hidden from each other in your relationship. It will also be more challenging to pretend things are okay when they're not, to convince yourself that you're being loved enough when you're not, and to close your eyes to the unspoken problems that might exist in your relationship. We go to great lengths to avoid these precious moments because they force you out of your comfort zone and demand that you finally attend to the problem honestly. It's time to remove your masks and reveal the feelings at the heart of who you are. It's the only way to experience true growth within the relationship. The longer these issues are ignored, denied or masked, the deeper rooted the issues become, and the greater the level of pain and heartache when they finally burst their way to the surface. So let's talk about precious moments for lovers. What does it mean to be a lover? It's more than just being in a relationship with someone or making love to him or her. Millions are in relationships. They have sex and share intimacy and closeness. But few are real lovers. A real lover commits to and participates in a perpetual appreciation of their partner, celebrating the gift of their relationship every single day by consciously exercising the key elements of love. To remind you, they are demonstrating acceptance, appreciation and affection. They want the best for their partner, paying conscious attention and displaying affection and understanding, exhibiting friendship, respect and passion. A true lover never forgets that their partner doesn't belong to them. They are on loan from the universe, and they know that if they do not take good care of them, they may lose them emotionally or even physically. Ask yourself if this scene seems familiar to you. You arrive home tired from work and your partner wants to tell you all about her day or his day. The kids are chattering, keen for you to know what happened in their 8 hours too. Maybe you're unaware of it, but you're not there in the moment. You're off somewhere mentally, still thinking about what happened in a meeting or when you can get some time to yourself. Your partner can't quite put the finger on it, but something tells them instinctively that you seem distant. Then your phone rings. It's a call from your colleague at work. You answer it and your demeanour changes. Suddenly you're fully engaged, laughing and animated, giving your full attention to the caller. Your partner observes this shift in your behaviour. How do they feel right now? They probably wonder why they don't get the same degree of conscious attentiveness to what they want to share with you. They feel unimportant and hurt, not worthy of your attention, resentful that others are allowed precious moments of you, but they are not. We've all been there. We We all must feel we are worthy of being listened to, appreciated, accepted and understood. The greatest measure of respect we can show to the ones we love is being there in the moment for them when they need us, paying sincere, conscious attention to what they have to tell us. When we get this, we feel worthy, valued and loved. Nothing that happens between you and your partner is insignificant. Everything that you say and do can create joy or pain. It's your job to identify what words and actions you use that will either strengthen your connection or weaken it. You become a lover when you understand all of this, waking up each day filled with gratitude that you have another 24 hours to love and enjoy each other. Should you or your partner forget that your relationship is a gift, when you no longer remember to cherish one another, that's when you cease being lovers, albeit temporarily. Nothing is worse than being in a relationship and no longer feeling like lovers. There's little more sorrow than realising you love someone but don't feel in love anymore. What once was a blissful, joyful experience now feels empty. You may sleep together, share a home and a family together, but that bond of ecstasy you once revelled in may have faded or even disappeared. Falling out of love happens gradually over time because one or both of you take the other for granted when either of you stop thinking and acting like the lovers that you once were. And communication is a vital key to all of this. One of the greatest reasons, or the most significant reasons for relationship breakups, is a breakdown in communication between the people in the relationship. To remain lovers, you must create and preserve your relationship's precious moments. Couples that fall apart often take for granted the true beauty within their partner, overlooking the conscious need to express kindness, and most importantly, because they don't make time to experience the precious moments that love is all about. Contrary to popular mythology, love is made. It doesn't just happen. The expression making love doesn't just apply to sex. It has a more significant meaning. In the sharing of precious moments, paying conscious attention, showing affection, appreciation, understanding, respect and true friendship, and keeping passion alive are essential elements in making love and maintaining a loving relationship. Precious moments are created when you and your partner are focused on each other, loving one another in the moment with open hearts and experiencing the joy of your love. When both hearts are open in this way, there's a connection of love between you that forges a wonderful bond. Precious moments are not just for the bedroom. It doesn't matter what you're doing, it's the level of attention you demonstrate to what you are experiencing that defines it as a precious moment. You can spend every minute in each other's presence, but unless you are consciously experiencing some precious moments, you won't ever truly be together. Precious moments teach you to pay attention with your heart, to start being right here, right now, in the moment. Those real moments will ultimately give depth and meaning to your relationship and keep you eternally in love. So enough of the preamble. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What are these precious moments that we've been talking about, that we've been alluding to? The first one is the loving look. He or she sleeps next to you, has sex with you, eats with you, and sometimes looks at you, but doesn't look into you. He or she sees your face but doesn't know how you're feeling. They see your body but doesn't see your spirit. When your partner looks at you with a loving look, you will feel more completely loved than if they gave you any gift more beautiful than any words could say. Loving your partner with words. The words you use will create either a receptive or a resistant response. The right words can talk to her body until it opens to you like a flower. The right words can make her feel swollen with desire, smile with delight and cry with happiness. You have the power to make her feel so safe, so understood, that all of her old fears and mistrust melt away. You can make her feel so cherished and beautiful that she'll never feel jealous or insecure again. Why wouldn't you want to find those words? Loving your partner with kissing. Kissing is one of the most intimate sexual acts you can experience. When you place your mouth on the mouth of the person you love, you share that person's very life breath. As with touch, if you set aside feelings of lust and replace them with your heartfelt feelings of love, it will transfer into your kiss. The passionate kiss stands alone as an act in which both lovers are equally open to each other. Our hearts open and our souls breathe together. The loving embrace. A simple embrace can be more intimate than the most passionate sex and more meaningful than the most honest conversation. Whenever you feel disconnected from the love you share with your partner, ask your partner to hold you. There's a world of difference between an embrace and a hug. You can share a hug with friends, whereas a loving embrace is so much more. With a loving embrace, you can absorb all of your partner's worries and fears and make them feel comforted and safe. Something magical can happen when you are held in your lover's arms. You forget about the things that you thought mattered and remember the things that really do matter. You get out of your head and back into your heart. It doesn't take much courage to have a relationship. You choose to spend your time with someone, to have sex with them, and perhaps to live together. It does, however, take courage to love your partner deeply, not to be merely a couple, but to be true lovers and to create a conscious relationship. The greatest love always requires the greatest courage. If you measure the success of your relationship in terms of how comfortable it makes you feel, you may convince yourself that your relationship is good. After all, it doesn't challenge you and confuse yourself that your challenge is unhealthy because it creates wild surges of emotion. We're not saying that a relationship is always painful, is good for you, and that you should stay with that partner. You shouldn't. But when you develop the courage to love deeply and consciously, you'll often feel uncomfortable as your relationship stretches you beyond the boundaries of your comfort zone, as you experience the changes essential to growth, the changes of love on that journey that we talked about a few moments ago. The depth and honesty of your love and the more trust you create between you, the more your relationship will present you with the truth and the more uncomfortable you may become. Sometimes after a significant commitment is made in a relationship, such as moving in together, getting married or having a baby or another baby, this may bring a time of conflict and turmoil. Remember the power struggle referred to earlier in the session? Well, here it is. You are the source of your own love. When the initial bliss of relationships start to fade, the common misconception is that it's up to the other person in our relationship to do or say something to make us feel more in love. You are the source of the love you feel in the relationship, not the other person. It's crucial to understand that you have the power to learn to fall in love with your partner repeatedly. You can't do it only once and then sit back. Know their needs. Remember the essential elements that made you feel love and show attention, affection, appreciation, acceptance and understanding. Demonstrate your respect, passion and your friendship for them. Love is an active verb, like a plant that will die without water. Love will die without your care. Staying in love. Staying in love is the greatest challenge in your relationship. A substantial number of people stay together after love has gone. The truth isn't complicated, it's just hard to grasp and keep in one's awareness. Love is a relationship. This is not hard to understand. What's more difficult is that every relationship is an independent entity. It's like a separate person. It comprises all the interactions between the members of the relationship. And this relationship remembers and influences how every future communication is interpreted. To make it even more demanding, love changes as it grows. We should not be surprised that falling in love, being in love, and long-time love requires us to actively create new, more appropriate understandings, skills and practices to enhance our love in every phase. Love is far more complex than sadness, anger, fear, pleasure, pride or joy. However, we know enough to identify specific ways to make love stay if we focus on our experience and awareness and do not depend on our love to maintain itself. How to tell if you're being loved enough. Here are some signs that you may be in a relationship where you love your partner more than you are being loved. Be completely honest with yourself, even if it hurts. Bear in mind that we love differently, so you may love your partner more, you feel, than they love you. What counts is that you're both happy with the balance of love that exists between you. But here are some warning signs that you may be in a situation where you love your partner more than you're being loved. 1. You usually reach out first to be affectionate, reaching for your partner's hand, offering a hug, kissing, etc. You're the first to initiate affection. 2. You want to make love to be intimate and loving them when you're in bed, but your partner is just into having sex. There is a difference. 3. You go out of your way to be with him or her, to do things for them, but your partner rarely goes out of their way for you. 4. At the beginning of the relationship, you tell your family about your partner before he or she tells their family about you. 5. You're the one who makes most of the plans to do things together, restaurant reservations, weekend out, romantic evenings, and your partner seems to just go along without showing much enthusiasm. 6. You seem much more excited about being in the relationship than your partner, who doesn't show you how much it means to them. This doesn't mean, by the way, that they're not excited. It just means that you exhibit that excitement more openly than they may do. That's where questions need to be asked of each other in terms of how you express yourselves. On special occasions, number 7, on special occasions, your gifts to your partner are well thought out and personal. Theirs might seem last minute and impersonal. Number 8, you initiate most of the contact in the relationship with phone calls, discussions, etc. 9, when you talk about your relationship, your future, or feelings for one another, your partner may become uncomfortable and unresponsive or change the subject. And again, this requires dialogue between you to discover why that might be. It might not be the case that they're not feeling the same feelings that you're feeling. They may not be able to express them in the same way. And that's something that you have to arrive at an agreement about. 10. You seem to fit yourself into your partner's life, habits and schedule. And they don't try to fit your life and schedule. None of these items that are mentioned here, none of these items listed, necessarily mean that the relationship means you're incompatible. All it means is they're little warning signs, little signs that you may need to address to have a conversation with your partner about a deficiency or a difference between the two of you. This is all about building rapport. The next section may cause you to be a little bit bewildered, but I'll just go straight ahead and start with it. The section is called You Will Never Lose Love. Our most incredible experiences for growth are presented to us in the form of discomfort, pain and suffering. The loss of love is a perfect example. It's a lesson from these very experiences from our past that teach us the most. For out of them emerges a wisdom that you wouldn't achieve in any other way. Most loving memories start happily, with the man or woman you love attracting your affection, admiration and respect. It may seem like they are fulfilling all of your secret desires. You'll experience a lot in love, unlike anything you've ever experienced. You'll marvel at the delight that you feel as you sit for hours, feeling waves and waves of ecstasy. With every visit, telephone call, letter and contact, you could get better and better. And then things begin to go wrong, and your dream of finding a soulmate becomes a nightmare, unlike anything that you've ever experienced. The details will differ from relationship to relationship. Your dream person may start a relationship with someone else without even telling you about it, or a part of their character or past may be revealed that is repugnant to you. You may experience the horror that they were involved with other people during your time together, sending the same love letters, expressing the same feelings, word for word. Undoubtedly, you will feel shocked, heartbroken, devastated, deceived and used. You may lie on your bed and sob until exhaustion forces your body to sleep. It may not be the first time you've experienced hurt, but it may be the first time you've felt betrayed. You'll mourn, not for what you feel you've lost, but more sadly for what you now know you never actually had in the first place. Stay with this. There is a happy ending. This is important. Please listen carefully, and if necessary, press rewind and pause and replay the words that I'm saying. The concept may seem unfamiliar to you as I explain it, but when you hear it once or even twice, I'm sure that you'll feel more than reassured that there can be a happy ending after love ends. As time passes, you'll ask yourself if you've been deluding yourself, living in a dream world, manufacturing the emotions that you thought you had experienced. In your heart you know this isn't true, that you had felt love and joy and ecstasy. At the time you were sure they were feeling the same love. Now you know that they weren't. The deeper you search, the closer you'll realise the truth. You felt this person was giving you intense love and profound intimacy. You felt these feelings. So if they weren't the source, who or what was? Suddenly it will become apparent to you. When it hits you and you fully understand this, you're on the road to recovery. All of the love, joy and ecstasy you felt came from inside of you. When you felt all that love, whose love were you feeling? Yours. Whose joy were you feeling? Yours. Whose ecstasy were you feeling? Yours. You didn't feel their love because it didn't exist as you thought it did. You didn't feel loved by them because they didn't love you as you thought they did. It was all your love, a testament to your strength and capacity to feel deeply and passionately. Our minds assign our love to a person as if they were the source of it. But as you have now discovered, they weren't the source. They were hardly participating in the process. You were the source of the love you were feeling. This leads us to a further amazing revelation. If you were the source of your love for them, then you've always been the source of all the love you've ever felt. You are the source of your own love. You decide when you're allowed to feel it and when you're not. But the love you feel is always yours. No one can give you any love you don't already have. Let's take this to the next stage. If a person had never been the source of the love you felt, then when they left your life, what did you lose? Nothing. Are you less lovable because they're no longer in your life? Do you have less love inside of you? No. So what's different? They stopped doing or saying certain things that had permitted you to feel the love, and you concluded, I don't feel loved by them anymore. Actually, you weren't allowing yourself to feel your passion anymore. You decided to stop experiencing all that love because they weren't around to bounce it off and to focus it on. You were the one depriving yourself of your love. Once you understand this, you'll be able to feel happy and in love. It was all a game your mind was playing with itself. No one gives you love, so no one can take love away from you. Close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and think about the people you've loved intimately. Some chose to leave you. Some you left. When you focus on all of the love that you've given, glorious waves of love will begin to wash over you. Allow yourself to feel the love without trying to assign it to any one person or give it any meaning. As you do, the love will grow stronger and more intense until you feel like one huge body of love. The conclusion drawn by the last few comments that I've made is worth repeating. No one can give you any more love than you already have. The love you feel is the love you are expressing, not the love that you receive. If you want more love, give more love. Now we'll move on to love on the brain. How our brains deal with love in a physiological and chemical manner. Conducting research for this session, it was fascinating to learn what happens to your body physiologically and chemically when you fall in love. My thanks in particular for so much of the content for this part of the session goes to Dr. Helen Fisher. To hear more about Dr. Fisher and her work, go to her website at www.helenfisher.com. The chemistry of love then. Many chemicals are racing around your brain and body when you're in love. Researchers are gradually learning more about the roles they play when we fall in love and when we're in long-term relationships. Testosterone and estrogen play a role in the sex drive area. Without them, we might never enter the real love arena. Initial symptoms of falling in love include a racing heart, flushed skin and sweaty palms. Researchers say this is due to our release of dopamine, norepinephrine and phenylethylamine. Dopamine is thought to be the pleasure chemical, producing a feeling of bliss. High dopamine levels are also associated with norepinephrine, which heightens attention, short-term memory, hyperactivity, sleeplessness, and goal-oriented behaviour. In other words, couples in this love stage focus intently on the relationship and often on little else. Researchers use magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, to observe people's brains when they look at a photograph of their object of affection. During the research, scans showed increased blood flow in areas of the brain with high concentrations of dopamine receptors, which are associated with states of euphoria, craving and addiction. Norepinephrine is similar to adrenaline and produces a racing heart and excitement. According to Helen Fisher, these two chemicals produce elation, intense energy, sleeplessness, craving, loss of appetite and focused attention. She also says the human body releases the cocktail of love rapture only when certain conditions are met, and men more readily produce it than women because of their more visual nature. Oxytocin. Oxytocin is released from the pituitary gland and bathes both women's and men's brains and reproductive tracts. This chemical increases our sensitivity to touch and encourages grooming and cuddling in both sexes. It also reduces cortisol, a stress-causing hormone, so oxytocin is an active factor in reducing stress. Oxytocin is released every time we hold hands or snuggle up close to someone. It bonds us with the people we love most, whether it's a lover, a child, a family member or friend. Studies show that oxytocin levels peak for women when delivering a baby and breastfeeding, both actions that send oxytocin levels skyrocketing. A labour-inducing drug, pitocin, is a form of oxytocin. The oxytocin effect is more powerful in women because it works in concert with estrogen, which is more plentiful in the female body, and is subdued by testosterone, which is higher in men. Research shows that men who regularly stimulate their mates' oxytocin levels are treated with greater affection by those women. In romantic love, when two people have sex, oxytocin is released, which helps bond the relationship. Oxytocin is also associated with the mother-infant bonding, uterine contractions during labour in childbirth, and the let-down reflex necessary for breastfeeding. Oxytocin plays a significant part in women's stronger bond with their children than their father. So guys, if you ever wonder why or how your lady's connection to your baby is a lot closer than yours, it's partly because of chemicals, the chemical bonding of oxytocin that will exist between the mother and the child throughout the whole of their lives. Vasopressin, an antidiuretic hormone, is another chemical that's associated with the formation of long-term relationships. Oxytocin and vasopressin interfere with the dopamine and norepinephrine pathways, which might explain why passionate love fades as attachment grows. Endorphins. The endorphins are the body's natural painkillers, and they also play a key role in long-term relationships. They produce a general sense of well-being, including feeling soothed, peaceful and secure. Serotonin. A shortage of serotonin is widely associated with depression. Antidepressant drugs such as Prozac are designed to increase serotonin levels, as can pleasant dinner conversations with your mate. In animal studies, high levels of serotonin encourage selectivity in mates, while lower amounts are associated with less discriminating choices of mate and overly aggressive sexual behaviour. Serotonin increases when you feel good about yourself. Loving someone and being loved are among the best ways to feel that way. Another possible explanation for the intense focus and idealisation that occurs in the attraction stage of love comes from researchers at the University College London. They discovered that people in love have lower serotonin levels, and that neural circuits associated with how we assess others are suppressed. These lower serotonin levels are the same as those found in people with obsessive compulsive disorders, possibly explaining why those in love obsess about their partners. Love junkies. Some may be addicted to that love high. They need that amphetamine-like rush of dopamine, norepinephrine and phenylethylamine. Because the body builds up a tolerance to these chemicals, it begins to take more and more to give love junkies that high, and they go through relationship after relationship to get their fix for it. We express love with the power of attraction. Within the brain, every mental activity consists of neutrons, which are electrically neutral subatomic particles firing in a specific sequence. An attractor is an association of links that can overwhelm weaker ones. The limbic brain, i.e. the emotional brain, contains its emotional attractors, encoded early in life. If the early experience of a limbic network reflects a healthy emotional experience, its attractors will serve as reliable guides to the world of workable relationships in adult life. In human beings, an attractor's influence is not confined to its mind of origin. Bear with this explanation. It takes a little bit of understanding. The limbic brain sends the energy of emotion outward, in this case in the form of love. Limbic resonance joins human minds together in continuously exchanging energy signals. Every brain is part of the network that shares information. Limbic attractors exert energy within the brain that produces them and on the limbic networks of others, calling compatible memories, emotional states and styles to each of them. A person can attract others into his emotional world through the limbic transmission of emotional energy. When we engage in this transmission and receiving of emotional energy, all of us can fall under the influence of another's emotional mind. The limbic transmission of attractors makes personal identity more malleable. The people we are attached to provoke part of our everyday neural activity. Ongoing exposure to one person's attractors does not just activate neural patterns in another, it also strengthens them. Long-standing togetherness writes permanent changes into a brain's neural pathway. The astonishing legacy of the human race is something known as limbic revision, the power to rewire the emotional parts of the people we love, as our attractors activate specific limbic pathways and the brain's memory mechanism reinforces them. In simple English, the power of love is so great that when in a loving relationship, the neural pathways in our brains create an emotional rewiring program in the brain of our loved one. Who we are and who we become depends partly on who we love. Pheromones. Romantic love begins with attraction. You begin your romantic relationship when there is that feeling of attraction. But why are we attracted to some people and not to others? Let's examine the role played by pheromones. These are chemicals in the body that send signal to others through a subliminal passageway of scent. Scientists widely accept that animals communicate and mate by smell. It's also known that scent warns animals of impending danger. A study on pheromones in women's underarm secretion gives the most solid evidence for the existence of human pheromones. It's been suggested that our subconscious preference for specific pheromones might explain why we are only attracted to certain people. Pheromones are not the only reason we are attracted to someone. Social and environmental influences, genetics and past experience contribute to who we are and who we find physically and emotionally attractive. Our genetics play a role in whether or not someone is desirable, to avoid inbreeding, or, at the other extreme, to avoid the loss of desirable gene combinations. Inevitably, our brain processes another individual's appearance, lifestyle, how they relate to past individuals we have met, and possibly their pheromones. Based on this information, we decide within our brain whether or not this person is worth getting to know. Referring to the course notes, you will see that there is a diagram entitled "Where Does the Brain Love?" and it lists all of the respective organs within the brain, elements within the brain, and the parts that they play in the emotional experience of love. Falling in love is an extraordinary experience. You become utterly, inexplicably obsessed with one person. You feel a spike of pleasure whenever you get a text or email from them, and spend as much time with them as is humanly possible. You see the good in them, but not the bad. To neuroscientists examining brain architecture, Love looks surprisingly like addiction. Not everyone goes through the experience of being in love, but many do, and it's one of the most distinctive parts of being human. Until recently though, neuroscience largely ignored love as a research topic. Most neuroscientific research has been devoted to negative symptoms like depression and addiction instead of joy. Helen Fisher uses MRI and other brain imaging techniques to examine romantic love and long-term attachment, saying that it's a new idea to accept that there are even brain systems associated with love in the first place. As a result, the study of love is pretty new, and the phenomenon is still largely a mystery. The studies that have been conducted are relatively small, and they only hint at the neurological basis of love. They don't fully define it. Still, there are a few exciting things that scientists have learnt so far. 1. The first stage of romantic love is a bit like drug addiction. Fisher distinguishes the early torrent of romantic love and the longer-term calmer attachment phase that follows. She found that in a brain in the initial stage of love, it looks surprisingly like a brain experiencing a drug addiction. To quote Dr. Fisher, she said, "When we put people who have just fallen happily in love into a brain scanner, we find heightened activity in a few different brain regions. The big ones are the ventral tegmental area, the VTA as it's known, and an area called the caudate nucleus." The scans compared participants' brains when looking at photos of their lovers versus photos of random acquaintances. Moreover, participants who scored higher on a survey that measured feelings of love had proportionately more activity in the VTA and the caudate nucleus. These are both core parts of the brain's reward system, areas that release the neurotransmitter dopamine to other parts of the brain, triggering feelings of pleasure. Heightened activity in the VTA, in particular, has been associated with all sorts of addictions, such as nicotine, alcohol, heroin, gambling, with each dose causing a fresh spike of dopamine. Fisher says this explains the feeling of obsession many people experience when falling in love. It's what gives you the elation and the craving that is basic to romantic love. She sees the early stages of love as more of a drive to be fulfilled, like hunger and thirst, than a stable, permanent emotion. Dr. Fisher's second point is that falling in love seems to reduce our ability to be judgmental. Other brain imaging work by Samir Zeki, a neurobiologist at University College London, might explain a related aspect of falling in love, how new lovers only see the positives in each other. When Zeki puts people who have fallen in love inside an fMRI scanner and shows them photos of their lovers, he detects reduced activity in the amygdala, a pair of brain regions that are involved in decision making. Amygdala activity is typically heightened during fearful or stressful situations, and research suggests that we use it when making social judgments and trying to determine if other people are lying. Reduced amygdala activity in lovers, Zeki believes, may make them less prone to making negative judgments and being distrusting of each other, facilitating a sense of intimacy. Point 3 then is that there are similarities between falling in love and OCD. In experiments at the University of Pisa, Professor Donatella Marazziti and colleagues have studied levels of serotonin, a neurotransmitter associated with feelings of contentment, in the brains of people who said they fell in love in the previous 6 months. Low serotonin levels may lead to the obsessive, jealous aspects of love. Given that we think of love as a positive emotion, it's surprising that she found reduced serotonin levels in these people. Even more surprising, though, is that they were as low as other study participants who had obsessive compulsive disorder. So low, she says, that her biologists came back and assumed that the readings were from people who had suffered from OCD. It's well established that people who suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder have reduced serotonin levels, likely contributing to extreme feelings of anxiety. When it comes to love, Maraziti writes, a lack of serotonin may lead to the obsessive, irrationally jealous behaviour we see in some people. Dr. Fisher's fourth point is that getting rejected is a bit like going through withdrawal. Helen Fisher scanned the brains of people who said they were in love with people who'd rejected them. Given that love shares some characteristics with addiction, it might not be a surprise that when they looked at photos of their beloved, their brains looked like addicts going through withdrawal. When you're rejected in love, we still find activity in the VTA. You're still madly in love with that person after all, she says. But we also find elevated activity in other brain regions linked with craving, and in a part of the brain associated with the distress accompanying physical pain. Dr. Fisher's fifth point is that long-term attachment is neurologically different from early-stage love. Fisher and other researchers distinguish between these successive phases of love for a good reason. They look somewhat different regarding both behaviour and brain activity. Her fMRI studies of couples who'd been happily married for decades found that activity increased in brain areas distinct from those identified in the study of new lovers when they looked at photos of each other. Activity was elevated in the VTA, like in new lovers, and the ventral pallidum, an area associated with maternal attachment in animal studies. Fisher says this may be responsible for the long-term, persistent feeling of attachment between people in a long-term committed relationship. The feeling of attachment is very different from the feeling of romantic love, she says. Romantic love is giddiness, elation, euphoria, energy. When you're feeling a deep sense of attachment, you're calmer and more contented. It's still uncertain why people transition from the first phase of love to the second phase of attachment. But Fisher hypothesizes that separate evolutionary mechanisms drive them. The initial flood of obsessive love evolved, she thinks, to get you to focus on a single person in order to reproduce. The second phase of attachment, by contrast, evolved to link you to another person for an extended period of time in order to raise a child. From her research, Dr. Fisher would also like the world to know that animals love too. To quote Dr. Fisher, she says, "There's not an animal on this planet that will copulate with anything that comes along. Too old, too young, too scruffy, too stupid, and they won't do it. Unless you're stuck in a laboratory cage, and you know, if you spend your entire life in a little box, you're not going to be as picky about who you have sex with. But I've looked in hundreds of species and everywhere in the wild, and animals have their favourites." Ethologists know this. There are over 8 words for what they call animal favouritism: selective proceptivity, mate choice, female choice, sexual choice, and indeed there are now 3 academic studies in which they've looked at this attraction, which may only last for a second. Still, it's a definite attraction, and either this same brain region, this reward system, or the chemicals that the reward system are involved, animal attraction can be instant. You can see an elephant instantly go for another elephant. A further diagram in the course notes called Falling in Love Step by Step shows 5 steps of the journey of love, if you like, chemically as it passes through the brain. Step 1 is the hypothalamus releasing dopamine into the body, causing those feelings of ecstasy and excitement. And step 2, as the dopamine levels increase, serotonin levels decrease, and serotonin is responsible for a person's mood, appetite, amongst other things. The lower levels of serotonin are similar to levels found in people with OCD, as we've mentioned, and this may result in feelings of obsession or infatuation. Step 3 of the process, along with dopamine, the body also produces a substance called nerve growth factor, NGF. NGF is more prevalent in people who are newly in love. People who are not in love or are in long-term relationships have lower levels of NGF than recent lovers. The amount of NGF in the body directly relates to the intensity of romantic feelings. Stage 4 of the chemical process is that oxytocin and vasopressin become responsible for feelings of connection and commitment. The part of the brain called the hypothalamus produces these 2 hormones, and they're then stored in the pituitary gland, which secretes hormones into the body. In times of extreme passion, such as during orgasm, these hormones enter the bloodstream. The presence of the 2 chemicals is often attributed in part to the success of long-term relationships. And stage 5 of the chemical journey is that these hormones affect different parts of the brain because of the sections nearness. Certain responses occur. Activity increases in the romantic core of the brain, and the amygdala deactivates. A person's standards for judging others become blurry, as we've heard, and the person in love feels less stress and fear, and the result is an overall feeling of unity between the 2 people in love. The science of falling in love, beyond the love songs, romantic poems, passionate novels and movies, love is the result of a complex process in the body. The diagrams that are contained within the course notes show a breakdown of love's biology and the ways humans experience romance with each other. Some final observations from Dr. Fisher from her research. She quotes, "Women are from Venus. Women tend to get intimacy differently than men. Women get intimacy from face-to-face talking. They swivel towards each other, do what they call the anchoring gaze, and talk. This is intimacy to women. It comes from millions of years of holding that baby in front of their face, cajoling it, reprimanding it, and educating it with words." In contrast, she says that men are from Mars. Men tend to get intimacy from side-by-side doing. The other guy will look away as soon as one guy looks up. This comes from millions of years spent sitting behind a bush, looking straight ahead, trying to hit that buffalo on the head with a rock. For millions of years, men faced their enemies and sat side by side with friends. So Helen's final statement is, love is in us. It's deeply embedded in the brain. Our challenge is to understand each other. To conclude this session, The Power of Love, we're going to look at the difference between being in love and loving someone. And the title of this section is this love? Love versus being in love. There's a massive difference between loving someone and being in love. If you love someone, you're still in control of your emotions. You choose how you'll allow yourself to feel and react about that person. If you've fallen in love, you're no longer calling for the shots. You become hopelessly dependent upon and at the mercy of whomever you fall in love. Do you know when you're in love? It's common for patients to fall in love with their psychotherapists. There is a genuine tendency for people to fall in love with those who satisfy their emotional needs for compassionate understanding. Do you know when you're in love? Can it be a romance of a lifetime? Do you believe that the person you're destined to be with is the one you're with now? Do you find all the things in life revolve around love? Have you ever bragged to your friends, "I'll never go crazy over a girl or a guy. I'm never going to act like a lovesick twit"? Your friends just smile to themselves. That's what you think they mutter. Just you wait. Someday your time will come, and sure enough it does. Sooner or later you find yourself in a foggy daze, ignoring friends, neglecting school or work, and bumping into furniture. And to finish this session on love, some bullet point differences between loving someone and being in love. Loving someone is a choice. Being in love isn't. Loving someone means wanting them to do well. Being in love means always putting them first. Loving someone can be fleeting. Being in love is forever. Loving someone means needing them around. Being in love means needing them to be where they are happy. Loving someone is a rush. Being in love is a steady stream of emotions. Loving someone is about how they make you feel. Being in love is about how you make them feel. Loving someone is about ownership. Being in love is a partnership. Loving someone is an uphill battle. Being in love is effortless. That concludes this final session, the 20th session, The Power of Love. I hope you found the course useful. If you haven't yet listened to the other sessions in the course or looked at the other books in the course, please do so. You wouldn't want to miss anything, would you? Wishing you all the happiness and love you wish for yourselves. Thank you for listening.